What's quaking, people? Cat Richard Quake here, coming at you with a very special reaction. Need a little more of the count in your life? You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can come hang out in the Discord server. You can listen to the podcast Nerd Base wherever you can find podcasts. I also stream on Twitch every Sunday at noon PST, and I'm even writing an anime-inspired novel which you can read on Wattpad as the chapters are released. Links to all of this are down in the description. And of course, if you want to support the channel, the best way is to simply like, comment, subscribe if you haven't, and ring the notification bell for more otaku and nerd culture content. Okay, today I have a very special reaction, but I am not alone. I'm here with, who are you?
I am Draconic Afterlife.
Draconic Afterlife. Guys, Draconic also has a YouTube channel. He does gaming content. There will be a link down below. Go check him out. Subscribe if you haven't. You will not be sorry. Now, Draconic, let me know. What are we watching today? This is all you.
This is a video that was put out a while ago. It is about music, which is why I thought of you. Specifically, It is about the music for Doom. Have you ever played Doom? The 2016 remake?
I have no. I see. My brother used to play the old one, like the old, like, you know what I'm talking, like, what is, like, oh, I think it looked like it was 8-bit, the old, like, 8-bit FPS dungeon shooter.
Yeah, it was from 1993 is when the first Doom came out.
I remember watching him play that, and then a friend of mine got Doom 3 on the PC, like 2003 or 4, I think, and that scared the shit out of me. But yeah, that's my own. I've never had any like hands-on personal experience with Doom, just kind of like through a third party.
Gotcha. So yeah, pretty much when they decided to remake it, Mick Gordon is the guy behind it. You know, he'll introduce himself and everything when we started. Okay. But as a brief overview, pretty much, he was brought on to recreate the music, and he was told not to do stuff. He'll talk in the video.
He was told not to do stuff.
Yeah, not to do certain things. Okay. He'll go in pretty quickly about it, but they didn't want metal. They didn't want any kind of metal music for Doom.
That's weird, because when I think of Doom, I kind of think metal music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what he was talking about with the challenge of that, is trying to create a non-metal score. Eventually, there is metal in it. Mm-hmm. It is very, like, I guess industrial metal would be the term that I'd want to use. Kind of
that lower, that tuned down sort of like.
But it's also got electronic stuff in it.
Yeah, with the electric, yeah, exactly, like the low tuned electronic, sort of like 9 Inch Nails type of metal.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Yeah. 9 Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That seems to fit.
He goes into all the stuff that he talks about and everything. This is the very intricate, detailed one, because this is a GDC video. You know, he gets to talk about all the nerdy tech stuff.
Right. Okay.
And you being a music person, you will understand a lot more of these than I did.
Well, let's see. Like the electronic side of music, like the whole EDM side of music, I don't know as much about. I'm more of like the live performance side of music. But I'm getting more into the electronic side. So let's check this out. Let's not waste any more time. What do you think? Let's check it out. Doom Behind the Music.
Doom has a very good soundtrack. The running joke is that Doom is a $60 album with a free game.
Okay, that makes sense.
I tell you, I'm so happy to be speaking to you all this evening. This is absolutely brilliant. I'm really, really happy to be speaking to you all. One, because I know it's 5 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, so I can guarantee that at least 30% of you...
I'm just going to go ahead and say that he looks like he makes EDM. Does that make any sense?
It does, but he's actually a guitarist.
Okay, I can kind of see that too. Kind of like I can see the guitarist side of maybe the like European guitarist. Anyway, I'm done making fun of his looks. We're good.
You were sober. The second thing is that I really have not had a chance to geek out on those wonderful details that went into the good Doom soundtrack like I will tonight. So if you're here for those sort of geeky details, that's really what we're going to get into. Let's get started. Have you ever received a brief that went something like this? We want you to make music that no one has ever heard before.
That's a standard.
It needs to fit the game perfectly. And be instantly loved by millions of fans. Now, if you're anything like me, when you get a brief like that, your initial reaction is to run into the bathroom, pour the cold tap on, crawl up into a little ball, and have a little cry. But what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is how you can execute a brief like this. And I'm going to discuss with you the lessons that I learned to enable you to do so. I first met the id Software team back in about mid-2014. They sent me a music design document that started like this. Doom is about demons on Mars. You have a shotgun, send them back to hell. Cool.
Great, basic.
The second part of the brief went like this. No guitars.
Ooh.
We hate guitars. We do not want guitars in our game. Do not put guitars in. Underneath that big section was a little line that said, I love synths. Cool? I can work with that.
This seems like a very, very, very honest and easy client to work with because it's straightforward. It's like In-N-Out Burger. All right, here's what we have. We have these 3 things. No, we don't have any chicken. Next. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. Very plain and simple, cut and dry.
Yeah, that was the original brief that they gave him. And when I first saw this, I was like, how are you going to tell a guy that's making music for Doom not to put metal?
Well, I mean, it's got to be something no one's ever heard before. Everyone's heard guitar, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's probably the idea behind it, but let's see.
The third part of this brief went like this. We want you to create music that nobody's ever heard before.
Right.
It needs to fit the game perfectly and instantly loved by millions of fans. Now, Doom fans, they're not like Disney fans. If Doom fans don't like what you've done, they'll burn your house down. So let's say we take a brief like this, right, and we hand it to a piano player.
Right.
Now, this piano player is going to channel in the demons, and they're going to channel in the hell, and they're going to channel in the Mars. But what you're going to end up with is a solo piano piece. It's inspired by the brief, sure, but it's not an execution of the brief. Now, say you gave the same brief to a dubstep producer. This dubstep producer is going to take all those awesome demon growling basses.
Mick's also pretty good at comedy, too.
Yeah.
They're going to take some awesome bell samples to get the hell thing in there, and they're going to mix in some brass samples to get in the Mars thing, right? But what you're going to end up with is a dubstep track. It's inspired by the brief, sure. It's got synths in there, but it's not an execution of the brief. Now, same again if you handed that exact same brief to a composer, and that composer's instant reaction is to open up their Cubase template that they've worked with for the last 10 projects, and they're going to use all their demon contact patches, and they're going to use all their hell contact patches, and they're going to use all of their Mars contact patches. You're going to end up with the same piece of music that person has written for the last 10 projects. It's inspired by the brief, sure, but it's not an execution of the brief.
That's true.
Right. Wow.
Now, why have these 3 failed?
Can I predict what he's going to say? Because they're not making something no one's ever heard before? Maybe.
The reason that they're failing in this example is that they're going through the exact same process that they've always done every single time.
So it's more or less.
And you cannot expect to end up with a different outcome without changing the process. Change the process, change the outcome. Now, this is obviously a lot easier said than done. We're very fearful of changing the process. If you're anything like me, you suffer terribly from the fear of rejection. It's that fear of rejection that disables us from changing our process. Why? Because that's asking you to take everything you know and put it aside. Come up with a new process in the hopes that you're going to reach something better. Now, as humans, we don't want to do that. If something has worked a certain way before, we want to repeat that process to end up with what we perceive is going to be the same result. If it's gotten us a success in the past, we expect it's going to get us a success in the future. But in the ever-changing perpetual world that we live in, that's simply not the case. Change the process, change the outcome. But the key to this is working with a team that shares this exact same philosophy. I was very excited to meet the Doom team. Ben picked me up from the hotel in Dallas and drove me all the way down to the YIT offices. The whole way he played this most incredible electronic music. It was great. It was all this weird sort of crazy like experimental stuff. There's no beat, there's no time signature, there's no nothing. It's just random sort of weirdness. But he listens to this stuff every morning to inspire him. When I entered the office, I met Chad Mossholder. Chad was just finishing up the masters on his latest experimental electronic music album, this one here. Richard Devine did a remix on it. It's really, really fantastic stuff. I was then introduced to Chris Height, the audio director. Now, Chris's room I couldn't even get into because it was full of synthesizers. There was synths everywhere. There was boxes of sounds everywhere. I couldn't move. Straight away after meeting Chris, I was
I had a friend in high school who was like that. Like his room, he couldn't get the door all the way open because he had a full 88-key keyboard. He had a couple synths. He had a drum set in there. He had a big full stack guitar amp in there. Like,
damn,
it was a little tiny
in a college dorm?
No, in high school, in his bedroom.
Oh.
And it wasn't much bigger than a college dorm, yeah. But like he had a little tiny twin-sized bed that was kind of like just fighting for space, and then like all of it was just music equipment. And I loved that place.
Told that there was a very, 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 very important audio-centric meeting, so we all rushed into a room. You see, Aphex Twin had just dropped a couple of new tracks, and we all had to have a listen. It was clear that these guys lived creativity, and they breathed creativity. In fact, every Wednesday evening after work, they had this fantastic concept called Weird Wednesday, where they'd all get into a studio together and just geek out for a while on any new plugins or any new pieces of equipment that they got, and they just jam. Now, they're not jam in the conventional sense. There's not a tempo. There's not a key signature that they're set into. They're not playing licks or anything. Chad over there on the far right is running his guitar through his laptop, and he's playing with all sorts of Bejeweled modules, making all sorts of cool sounds. Ben in the middle there at the background, he had a Eurorack system, and he was making all sorts of awesome, incredible sounds with these Make Noise modules that he just picked up. That's Chris there on the left, and he had his Ableton Live setup, and he was making all sorts of, processing and sound design based on what the other two guys were doing. I had my little laptop set down up at the front here. And the guys would record this, and they'd just jam away, making all sorts of weird, random sounds for 2 hours, and they'd record it for archival reasons. But that wasn't really the purpose. The purpose here was to break away from any creative inhibitions. It was to break away from anything that was stopping them from getting to their creativity. What they were doing was creating an environment where each of them felt comfortable in failure.
Ugh. What this whole story right now is kind of making me feel, and it's a feeling that I've had for a while now, is that I really, really, really miss making music with other people. That's something I haven't been able to do in a long time. All the music I've been making for the last few years has all been by myself. And there's something you just can't replace with, feeding off of the energy of someone else. You know what I mean? Feeding off of the creativity, like building off of each other. You just can't replace that. The most creative person in the world is nothing compared to the hive mind of like-minded creatives feeding off of each other's energy. I love live music is unmatchable in music.
Well, yeah, because you have that dynamic between the crowd and the band.
Exactly. Well, not just that too. That's definitely a very awesome thing as well. But I mean, even if it's not on a crowd, even if it's just in a room together, a bunch of musicians together, you can't match that. Even if it's like a lot of electronic stuff, like what they're doing with computer process stuff and all the EDM type things, it's still feeding off the creativity and the energy of other people with you. And that's unmatched. Like I've made a lot of music by myself that I think is really, really good, but nothing compares to being able to feed off the energy of somebody else.
Yeah, because it takes somebody else going to have an idea of, hey, have you tried playing it this way?
Something.
It's the creative ideas.
I feel like I've written a lot of good music by myself, but I think some of the best music I've ever written has been a collaborative effort, hands down, to this day. And I feel like I'm more of a mature music writer than I used to be. But even to this day, some of the best music I wrote was when I was 19 with a bunch of other people. So, wow. Yeah, seriously. Is that positive or negative? I don't know. You decide. That's all. This whole story is kind of bringing up in my heart.
Yeah.
So I was so inspired after hanging out with these guys for a couple of days, and I couldn't wait to get back to my studio, right? And I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to come up with some really incredible, creative doom music based on synth.
Really? I thought he was American.
No, he's Australian. He's from Sydney, Australia.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic. I can hear his accent, but yeah.
And stuff, right? So, synths, right, dude? So we got synths and there's hell, right? And hell's down below. So, synths, we can put them down below like a sub, yeah? So let's start with like a sub part, right?
I hope you have good headphones on or something.
I do.
That's what that sounds like. Okay, it's really low sub part, right? But this is actually really good. See, the trouble with sub notes is when you're running them so low, as we demonstrated just then, you can't hear them. So instead, we want to take some high-frequency content. We want to add some high-frequency content to those subparts in order for the player to be able to hear them on their TV systems. Now, one of the ways that I like to do this is to take white noise. And I take this white noise, and I turn the white noise on, and I turn the white noise off at a rate that mirrors the frequency of the sub underneath.
Oh, shit, okay.
So what I'm essentially doing here is ring modulation, right? But it's ring modulation at the audio frequency. Now, the sub there that you couldn't even really hear was ringing at about 36.7 hertz. So 36.7 times per second, that's bouncing or trying to bounce. It wasn't really bouncing. So when you take like a white noise and you do that with the same sort of thing, you end up with this sound. All right? So when you combine those two together and you get the sub and the white noise, you can hear them together. You're probably not going to hear the full result on these speakers, though. There's the sub.
Ooh.
Right.
Ooh.
I feel we're really testing the GDC speakers here. Now, if you take this combination, you feed it through a distortion process, you get all sorts of really interesting harmonics. In the next video here, I'll run these two together through some distortion. You'll hear all sorts of interesting stuff start to happen. Now, I'll turn the white noise off halfway through, and you can hear what the distortion is doing to the sub alone. And you'll notice that the white noise is actually doing quite a lot. All right, so there's where we go. So I was like, oh man, this is brilliant, right? Here we go. This is going to be the doom sound. We're going to take sine waves, I'm going to take noise, I'm going to run them through some distortion. I'm an absolute genius. This is brilliant. So I send this off to Chris, right? And I tapped out a really big email justifying the whole thing. And I said, man, this is going to be awesome. Let this thing blow your mind. And then I sent it off. I hit send on the email, and I awaited Chris's reply.
Rejection.
He replied with this.
Meh.
Now, you're only laughing there because you're suffering the same fear of rejection that I am, right? And there I am, I read that on my screen and I'm like, oh no, I failed again, right? Time to go turn on the cold water in the shower and have a bit of a cry.
Do you understand, like, I don't know if you've had any, like, experience with, like, the creative process, like, with music or anything, but do you have any idea what it actually feels like to be so proud of something? To have, like, so much, like, oh, I can't believe I don't even know how I came up with this. This is so awesome. And then show it to somebody and they get like, it's all right. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I've never had that. I've never had that. I can imagine what that would feel like, though.
No breakup or rejection from a significant other compares to that.
Oh, damn.
It's like, but I love it. This is my baby.
I worked so hard.
You just said my baby's ugly. It's yeah, but it happens, and that's the thing. That's one of the benefits of having other people, is that you don't get stuck in your own, like, believing your own hype bullshit. Because you can get really stuck into something, and then after a while, you're so deep into it that you're not even hearing it for what it is anymore. You know what I mean? You're just so deep into it, and then it takes someone else's, like, fresh ears sometimes to go, yeah, you beat the living hell out of this, or like, you know, this really isn't the direction you should. Like, there's something about having someone else to be able to keep you modest. I think is modest or humble. Is the best way to put it. You know. But it's painful. It's painful to really be proud of something and not have everyone else love it. You know, and that is the pain every artist feels. You know, put your music out there, then no one likes it. Oh my God, I'm gonna go die now.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why they have, like, they're the bravest people, because they put it out there for everyone to see.
Yeah,
or everyone to hear.
I still think the bravest artists are stand-up comedians. I still think they are the bravest, because that's a sort of rejection that's like it's a core rejection, because, like, when you're trying to make people happy and make people laugh, and you think it's funny and you're selling it that this is going to be really funny and no one laughs, I feel like that is the most hardcore rejection pain that you can feel. So I think the most bravest artists are stand-up comedians, but musicians are close. Anyway, that's my spiel. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of both, by the way, so let's see.
But then underneath that, he had these lines.
Ooh.
I feel you've taken the first step on a journey toward the perfect destination.
Ooh, constructive criticism, okay.
Keep going. You're almost there.
Okay. That's a good guy.
Now, instantly,
I felt
comfortable with failure.
There you go.
I wasn't worried about failing with this team. I was encouraged to be able to keep going. Chris understood what I was trying to do here, but rather than rejecting it outright and therefore rejecting me and my abilities, he was saying, keep going. You're on the right path.
That's so powerful. You're right. That is so powerful. To like, instead of just going, meh, don't like it, be like, nah, I don't think it's there, but I love what you're trying to do, and I can see what you're trying to do. To give them sort of like, you know, it to like he's saying, give them comfort in failure. Like you didn't land yet, but keep going. That's such an awesome thing to give somebody.
Yeah,
especially a hard on your sleeve creative like a musician. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
as he says, instead of outright rejecting it and thereby rejecting me and my abilities.
Exactly.
You know, it was that whole oh, I've been rejected, I'm not good enough.
This isn't it, but you are good.
Your creative freedom.
Yeah, this isn't it, but you are talented, and I see what you're doing, so keep going. You're gonna get it. And like, I think it was Edison who said something like, he didn't fail 400 times at making a light bulb. He found 400 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
You know what I mean? Failure should, it's like, or like, you know, for more modern times, have you ever seen the movie Meet the Robinsons?
I've seen bits and pieces.
The animated movie with the kid genius who goes to the future, yada, yada. Anyway, that was the keep moving forward was their whole motto, you know, and they would celebrate failure because you learn more from failure than you do from success. And that's kind of like the mentality here, you know, go full tilt. And if you fail, that's great. Keep going. Now you know what's not going to work. Now keep going. Find the thing that's going to work. I love that. I love this. It's such a positive, cathartic process or environment to be in as a creative. I love this. I love this.
He was encouraging an environment where I felt comfortable in failure. Now, it was clear after this that I really wasn't doing the right thing, right? I knew in myself it wasn't correct. All I'd done is taken some sounds and ran them through distortion. I mean, that's not really amazing. I'm a guitar player and made a living out of doing that exact thing for about 10 years. Yeah. But what I needed to do was change the process, right? Change the process, change the outcome.
Here's where it gets good.
I'm a big fan of Doom 3. I really, really quite enjoyed Doom 3. I really love the darkness that they were able to get into it. I really love storytelling. I thought it was such an amazing technical achievement that they were able to pull off back in 2004. I found it really, really quite inspiring. It was an interesting project. Now, of course, the music that you're hearing there, Chris Vrenna had produced this track for Doom 3. Now, Chris is an incredible person. I've only spoken to Chris a couple of times, but his high level of music ability is only matched by his personality. He's a really, really wonderful person. And Chris, of course, played drums with 9 Inch Nails for many years and went on to play with Marilyn Manson and all that sort of stuff. Really, really great guy. But it was his experience with 9 Inch Nails that remembered something. I remembered that at one point, 9 Inch Nails toured with David Bowie.
What?
The power of ADHD.
Now, David Bowie himself is obviously a really incredible musician, and this reminded me of an interesting story.
Why did I not know that 9 Inch Nails ever toured with David Bowie? Why does that sound so insane, but perfect?
Because it does sound like it. But this is where it's like the power of ADHD to connect all these random things together.
Why do I'm just, my head is picturing David Bowie on a 9 Inch Nails track. That's what my head is picturing right now, and I can't get out of my head, and I need to hear it. And he's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Story.
Don't play this for too long.
Back in 1977, when Bowie was in Berlin,
well, like I said, I tested this.
Oh, did you? Okay.
He was working with a fascinating engineer named Tony Visconti. Now, due to the technical limitations that these guys were working with, they'd pretty much run out with tracks on this tape machine that they were using. They had one track left for vocals.
But
to get the full emotional impact of this song across, they needed to have reverb that was scalable. So Tony, the engineer, came up with this really incredible technique. He set up David Bowie in the middle of the studio here, right at the front here. So David would be singing into that microphone. About 20 feet away from that would be a second microphone.
You gotta be kidding me.
Then at the end of the hall was a third microphone.
You gotta be kidding me.
Now, microphones 2 and 3 at the back there were behind a gate, right? Everybody understands what a gate is, right? Open, closed gate, audio gate, right? Now, when David was singing at the start of the song, and it was kind of low tones, there wasn't much volume to his voice. So this first microphone was all it was picking up. Then when he'd open up a little bit, the second microphone, the gate would open and allow some of his voice through. That would create a bit of a natural ambience. Then when Bowie would really rip into it, the gate on the third microphone at the back would open up.
That's insane.
And what I thought was really fascinating about this is that they designed a system that dynamically added reverb based on the input.
That's insane.
So I thought, well, what if I designed a system?
Limitation breeds creativity.
I was about to say that. I love hearing about like some of these old like 70s and even 80s like producers and the stuff they had to do creatively to get around their limitations of like space. You know what I mean? There's some I know in Bohemian Rhapsody, they had to cheat and record some things on other tracks. Did you know that?
Really?
They had to put like a harmony line for the vocals are on like the drum track because they don't have space anymore. So they had to overlap certain tapes and record things on other recordings. I'm not kidding. Like they had to create, and then it creates like a strange sound, a unique sound. You know what I mean? That's not really duplicatable easily. And like, it's so cool to hear stuff like this. Like, so the limitation, the creativity that it takes to kind of like push past the ceiling of the limitation is pretty awesome. It's inspiring. It really is. But this natural reverb mic setup, this like dynamic reverb setup is incredible. It's insane.
On one audio track, no less.
I know. Oh, it's brilliant. This is brilliant.
That dynamically produced interesting and appropriate musical bits based on the input. To be inspired by this, I started getting this awesome concept art through for the project. I was really fascinated by these concepts of where they had these giant rock structures that were being held together with this evil force of energy, this hell energy. And the story in the game is that this evil corporation has found a way to mine this energy as a source of renewable energy, right? Sustainable energy source. But I kind of love this idea that everything from your mobile phone to the TV you watch, to the pacemaker that's keeping you alive, to the plane that you're flying, is all being powered by energy mined from hell. It's kind of evil energy, right? I had this idea about this sort of force that was traveling through things and getting corrupted, this evil energy. So with that in mind, I set out to design the following system.
Here's where creativity comes in.
Now, for the sake of this next bit, I want you to think of audio like water. It flows downhill.
It's waves, right? Okay.
We start with a computer at the top. The computer is what generates the sound. In this case, it was a simple sine wave. We'll go into more of that in a little bit. That computer split that signal out into 4 different paths. These paths went into a chain. The first chain consisted of a whole bunch of pedals, 4 pedals as a result. Now, for this first test, I actually wrote these down for the real geeks in the audience, if you're curious.
I am curious.
So the first pedal there was a Retro Mechanical Labs 432K distortion box, really, really great distortion box. The second pedal was a Metasonics KV100, really interesting tube distortion. The third pedal was a Geiger counter. It's like a bit crusher that you can kind of do some cool stuff with. The fourth pedal was a Dwarfcraft fuzz from the Dwarfcraft devices guys. They're really, really cool as well. That was the first chain. At the bottom of that was a splitter. We'll get back to that one in a second. The second chain went through a very similar setup. We had another 4 pedals. The first one was another Geiger counter, just for awesomeness. The second one was a Metasonics TX3. Google it or don't. The third was a Mutron biphase, an old phaser from like the late 60s, early 70s, really, really old phaser pedal. Because I really liked old phaser pedals, there was a second one of those. It was a Dodd 70s phaser as well. So really, really cool stuff. At the end of that was a compressor. We'll come back to that one in a second. The third chain consisted of a tape echo. I have this Watkins copycat old tape echo. They would actually record to a tape, and then the record head is back with the play head, so whatever you record plays up behind. And it's like proper echo, actual natural echo on a tape machine, right?
Damn.
Real stuff. The second distortion box that was under that, the pedal 1 that you see listed there on the third chain, that was just another distortion box. It was a Draconic valve distortion thing. It wasn't really there for the distortion aspect. It was there more for the compression aspect. After that, I have this old Akai reel-to-reel machine from the 70s. It's like a tiny little 1/4-inch thing. Great sound, really, really grimy. What I was doing here was feeding it with about 40 decibels more than it could handle, which was really, really cool, and then recording back off it at the same time. Following on to that, that went into a spring reverb tank with a wet and dry control, so I could kind of play around with that. That went into a compressor, which I'll talk about in a second. The final one we did a couple of different interesting things with. The signal was sent out to a little mini amp. You know those little crappy like Fender mini amp things that got like a tiny little speaker in them? Again, it was being fed with about 40 decibels too much of what it can handle. That was being mic'd with a little like a microphone with, so the speaker had a microphone in front of it, and a little bit of that signal was being sent through a splitter back into the amp itself. So we're creating a feedback loop there. But the feedback loop was only very, very small. It was so small that if a sound was actually coming through the amp, it would choke out the feedback. And when that sound started to disappear, the feedback would come back up in the mix. Ooh. I have a little example of that running here.
Ooh, I like that. That's super cool.
So when you hear whenever that distortion sort of stuff starts to die out, the feedback comes in, right? So the next thing is that every single one of those ran into a mixer, so I could start summing things back down. That ran into an EQ and a compressor. The EQ wasn't really doing much. It was adding about 4 or 5 decibels down really low, about 30 to 60 hertz. And then we were adding about the same up about sort of 8 to 10, basically creating a nice sort of smiley face EQ. Nothing really amazing there. That was running into a compressor. This compressor was absolutely friggin' pinned. I'm kidding, it was knocking off about 20 decibels, right? The reason I was hitting it that hard was so when the loud noises would start to go away, the compressor would begin to open up and bring up all the interesting noise that every single one of these pedals and bits of equipment was creating. I'll show you more of that in a second.
That's really cool.
The compressor itself was set at about a 30 millisecond attack, so we got some really cool punchy stuff. And then I'd adjust the release based on the tempo of whatever I was sending through it. Again, I'll show you that more in a second. The ratio was about 12 or 20 to 1. Pretty drastic, pretty crazy. And that was running straight into the digital audio workstation there and recording stuff. So what I'm going to do next is attempt to, if we can get some volume on the computer here, I'm going to show you my first experiment running through this array.
I want to hear it.
I'm going to show you a series of sub-sine wave tones. They're 4 F notes followed by a little bit of a gap. It's not meant to be buzzing. That's that buzzing over there.
Headphones are buzzing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. Now I know what you're thinking. It's really not amazing, right? I know, music of the year right here. Woo!
That shook my brain.
But when you run that through this array, all sorts of interesting stuff starts to happen. What I want you to listen out for is a couple of things. At the end of those 4 F notes, you'll hear another note creep in underneath. It's like an E. It's like just below the F. That's not being generated from me. That's not being generated from the computer.
Harmonic.
That's coming from some ground hum within the array. Additional to that, there's all sorts of interesting distortion layers that are coming in and out based on that splitter on the left-hand side there that was sending a signal to those compressors along the bottom. Sometimes, if I wanted to, that was essentially side-chaining the signal from those other chains. So based on whatever the input based on whatever the input was doing, it could dynamically change the mix of whatever each chain I had. The last thing I want you to hear out for is all sorts of interesting stuff that's going on with the sonics and things. You'll hear all sorts of harmonics. Anyway, here again is that same subwoofer tone run through this array several times. getting some.
That's insane. That blows my mind.
Yeah, no, it blew my mind when I first watched this. I was like, "You're kidding me."
He took a basic sine wave, like a low sub bass, like that's 0 octave, I think. Was it like a F0 or something? Like it took a low sub bass tone. It might be like F1 or something, and then like just ran it through a whole bunch of. I'm assuming these are all analog pedals and equipment. This isn't plugins on a computer. These are all analog pedals through like. This is all like through like daisy chaining all these different effects pedals and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. That is so cool. And it even adds like, and there's no drum machine in this, but it adds like a little bit of like a lot of the like where you kind of get sort of like that sound where it's kind of like clipping, where it's kind of like cutting off and on with that compressor, and so it gives that kind of percussive feel to it, like a drum kick. But that's all just because of like the effects, the compressor, and when it's kicking back on and off. That's so cool. Wow, this is really cool.
Experimentation.
This is insane. I want to go like play with a whole bunch of pedals now.
So the way I started thinking about this was that this was my instrument. I'm feeding it a very basic input, and all I'm changing from that input is amplitude and pitch of what I'm sending through. Everything I was sending through it was a sine wave. That's it. The reason I chose a sine wave is because the sine wave is our most pure representation of what sound can be. It's simply a wave that goes up and a wave that comes back down. Therefore, any interesting thing that was happening within this array was being imparted onto that sine wave in the purest form possible.
Ugh.
I started to think about this as my doom instrument. Now, don't care too much about this sort of thing. These pedals would change. I'd swap stuff out and all that sort of thing. But the concept remained the same. I'm going to show you a couple more examples of what I ran through it next. Here's another little subpart I ran through. I hope you guys can hear it.
Ooh. Ooh.
That's it. Very, very interesting. Not really. Kind of sucks. Here it is run through that array.
I like low notes.
All I'm doing is changing the amplitude and then tweaking some of the knobs as I go.
Ooh.
Here's another example. This is
what the heck?
This dude was a genius.
So I'll just play that one again.
Or is this? He's still a genius.
Just pretty basic, right? Now, I'm going to play that one through this array again. You'll hear the rhythm change halfway through just because I was getting bored with the same over and over again. Again,
This is making me want to go do things. No, seriously. This is making... whenever I watch a rock band play live, I'm always inspired to go play. I've always been that way my whole life. I have never, ever, ever once listened to electronic music and been inspired to go make electronic music before. But the way he's explaining how he did all this, I want to go play with my DAW. And that sounds dirty to you guys who don't know what a DAW is. I understand that. But I really want to go play right now. And this is so cool. This is freaking awesome.
I figured you'd like this.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to generate a bunch of like rhythmic sine wave patterns, and I'm gonna play with effects on them. I'm probably gonna spend hours doing that, and I'm not gonna come up with anything nearly as cool as what he's doing. But I can't. I really want to go play now.
And this is all before he starts incorporating a guitar.
Does he actually put guitar? That's no. That's no guitars.
You keep watching.
Okay. Does he hide it? Like you? Okay, never mind. I'll watch.
Everything there is being generated based on those sine waves alone. So here, finally, we're finding something that's interesting. This is some interesting music that is appropriate to Doom. It starts feeling good. When we started putting it into the game, it started working really, really quite well. But we only reached this thing because I changed the process. Changed the process, and we changed the outcome.
Oh my God, this is brilliant.
And this is an actual song from the game, by the way.
Ugh.
So here we are. Finally, we had something interesting,
dude.
right? Some really stuff that was kind of unique. It was kind of special to Doom. It started feeling really, really good. Throwing it in the game, everybody was responding it to really well. We were really quite happy with it. The thing was, though, it was missing something.
Guitar. Oh, never mind. I spoiled it.
See, the modern Doom is nothing but a tribute to 90s game design. 90s game design is really quite fascinating.
There it is.
You walk into a room and you're instantly presented with a series of very distinguishable enemies. It's your job then to figure out what weapon you want to pick to be able to kind of get rid of those enemies. Now, it's for that reason that you're allowed to carry as many weapons as you like. You don't need to aim down the sights. You're not hiding behind cover. None of this sort of stuff. The idea is that you're being constantly encouraged to move. It's very quick. It's very fast. In fact, even when you start to take health, you've got to go look for a health pack. You can't just hide somewhere and have it generate. It's all about kind of keeping that moving, right? Now, I feel that what was really interesting about the Doom team on the new Doom was that we're really able to capture that 90s feeling, even with a modern first-person shooter.
Ooh.
When I visited the id Studios in Dallas,
cool.
I was really blown away with how well the new Doom game actually felt. It was making me get these sort of weird nostalgic feelings of playing Doom back in the day.
That's what I was saying. Watching the clip in the beginning, that's what I was saying. This feels like a modern representation of the original Doom game. The way the gameplay felt just watching it. You know what I mean? That's exactly what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very similar to the same thing. So the game itself there felt like Doom, but it wasn't sounding like Doom. And I knew exactly why.
No guitar. Oh my God, I recognize that freaking MIDI guitar tone everywhere. I have songs on my computer I've written with that same exact sound. that dated old, like just basic tone of like wannabe distortion guitar replication. That was, I'm so sorry. That was nostalgic for me though. Like shit.
Well, because that's Doom.
Yeah.
We had no
That's E1M1.
guitars. Now, of course, there's a really good reason behind that, right? I mean, I know they said no guitars, we had guitars, don't put guitars into a game, but I totally understood why.
Are you ready to laugh?
It's because the sound of an electric guitar somehow instantly summarizes a genre that has become a bit of a joke.
So I'll pick one up when I go out today. Other than that, I'm in good shape.
I feel like horribly attacked right now. I feel aggressively attacked right now because I've seen some of these videos on the internet. But I feel very attacked right now.
I was laughing. I still am.
Cause I'm like, this is dope, and then I was like, they're really making fun of my heart right now. That's what they're doing. And
So, I mean, you can instantly see why. No developer wants to be associated with such a joke, right? I mean, it totally makes sense. The thing is, though, that harsh, aggressive, upfront sound that you get from a guitar is exactly appropriate, and it was the thing that was missing from the soundtrack. Now, it took some convincing, But after a while, we started looking at, hey, what happens if we add a little bit of guitar, like 5% here, and then maybe 10% here, right? Little bit by little bit. Now, slowly. What we wanted to do, though, was kind of experiment with different guitar tones. We didn't just want to take sort of general metal sounds and put those into the game because it didn't feel appropriate. It kind of felt like that. So we started experimenting with different ways to get guitar tones. I was again inspired by the work with that Chris Renner and things had done in the 90s and stuff like that, and specifically Marilyn Manson and an engineer that Marilyn Manson worked with named Sean Bevan. And he had this brilliant technique back in the day of getting this really chunky guitar tone. And it was a guitar tone that they used for like Beautiful People and stuff like that. And one of the methods they used to get that guitar tone was to take the guitar part as it normally was, play it up an octave, and then twice as fast. And you'd record that to tape at 30 inches per second, right? Then you'd take that tape and slow it down to 15 inches per second.
No way.
And get some really interesting results.
No way.
Now, I had a tape machine and I wanted to give this a try.
Really?
So this is the guitar.
Is that really how they did that? I don't know why he'd lie about that, but that's insane. I didn't know that. That kind of makes sense now. Wow.
Our part played up an octave twice as fast. Now, I know it sounds like Bill and Ted at the moment.
Yeah,
don't worry.
It does.
We record that to tape at 30 inches per second, play it back at 15 inches per second, run it through a preamp, which is kind of jacked pretty hard. You get this. Cool stuff. Super gnarly, right?
Did you hear that? Obviously, you've already seen this, but come on.
Lost in it. But yeah, that's nasty.
Loved it.
Another thing I did was started extending the range of the guitar down a lot. Now, I know a lot of people have made jokes about this sort of thing, and fair enough too. I got a hold of a 9-string, right?
Oh, wow.
9 strings are really freaking crazy. You don't need a 9-string. It's
no,
like
you
excessiveness.
Don't. I will. I mean, I know that even our buddy, I wish he was our buddy from Buried Alive would probably disagree that I say you don't even need an 8-string, but I mean they're being used quite effectively, and especially in like drop tuned metal music and stuff like that. But oh my god, it's intimidating to me. It took me a while to get used to a 5-string bass, and now I prefer 5-string basses, but like it took me a while to get used to that. But anyway.
String is so low, it is literally like having a 5-string bass on the bottom of a regular guitar.
There you go.
It's kind of stupid. I had this 9-string riff for the main menu theme.
Ugh. Ew. Dude, I have a boner for low end. I really do.
I've noticed.
Anyway, okay, let's just go.
The trouble was that it was sounding too much like a guitar. It's sounding again too much like a sort of metal thing. And as I said, the whole 9-string thing, really stupid. I actually got rid of the 9-string after finishing up the Doom project. I gave it to a buddy of mine. He plays in like the biggest, most aggressive metal band in the world, and even he can't find a use for it.
See?
Around the time I was experimenting with this, the Zynaptic plugin people re-released a plugin called Morph. And it's a really cool plugin. I recommend anybody check it out. Basically what you can do is take 2 sounds and interpolate some characteristics of one sound into another. I don't know exactly how it works, but basically you can take one sound and kind of start to morph it into the other sound.
Ooh, okay.
I took a sample of the chainsaw from the original Doom game.
Oh, shit.
And started to interpolate that guitar tone with that chainsaw sound. And this is what we ended up with.
Dude, that's
Doom's
nasty.
kind of violent if I didn't make that point.
God.
Sorry, I should have pointed that out at the beginning.
It sounds like a synth, though.
Anyway, so this was a really interesting way to kind of start getting some unique guitar tones into the game. Now, once I got this, I felt this was like the little Trojan horse that I was able to sneak into the id Software bases, right? And once I was in there, I was able to put as much guitar in as I wanted. Interestingly, what that allowed us to do was do something that I really love doing on every single project. And that is to create a couple of songs that belong in the game that kind of become easily identifiable to that game. It's a process I really enjoy doing. It's not just like the score stuff that sits in the background, but it's these songs that fans seem to really enjoy. It's the ones that they point out with. It's the songs that become associated with the game in the end. So once we started doing this guitar thing, it allowed us to do this. It allowed us to get these songs in there. It was finally starting to feel like a Doom game, and not so much just like some nerdy, geeky synth fest.
Good old DFG division.
Ooh, that's nasty.
So all of a sudden, just by adding that stuff in there, it started to feel like a Doom game. It started to make the player run around the arena a little bit more and feel comfortable doing that. Also, what was really funny about that is that once the game came out, fans of the game started to make jokes about the song.
I love that guy. I love that guy.
Memes galore.
So there we go.
He didn't explain. He didn't talk about putting drums in. There's drums on that track. I heard drums on that track. I heard the snare. I heard the kick. Anyway.
Well, they just said
By
no guitar.
changing our
Right.
process, we changed the outcome. We were able to come up with some sounds that fit the game. I would argue that it's not stuff that nobody's ever heard before, but it was something that started to become quite unique for Doom. It fit the project. By adding a bit of guitar and stuff in there, it started to fit the project even further. Even that was in the brief as a no-no, we decided to go back and change that brief in order to better kind of access that other point that was in the brief, which was that it needs to be instantly loved by all the Doom fans out in the world.
That's
right?
the more important part of the brief right there.
So here's where we go. This is how we started interpreting that brief. Now on Doom, it's impossible to ignore the controversy that the original Doom caused when it first came out back in the 90s. But music has had its fair share of controversy as well.
In May of 1982, teenagers of a congregation in Topeka, Kansas, destroyed thousands of dollars worth of records and tapes, which they felt contained the message of Satan.
I think that within the rock music field, you've got people who really are into the occult and into Satan. They're propagating Satan. They're propagating the demonic line, the occultic world, and I think it's a devastating thing on our culture.
Iron Maiden.
The only thing that's a devastating thing on our culture is that guy's pants. It's cool, right? No worries. Whatever. One day.
Look, everything I love has been accused of Satanism.
Hey, Doom is technically the most Christian game because you're killing the demons.
You're killing the demons, exactly right. And I grew up loving metal, and metal has always been kind of like that edgy sort of anti-culture type thing. So they always lean to the imagery that's going to piss the most people off, which is, the pentagrams and the upside down crosses and stuff. They weren't satanic. The only real satanic metal music was the Swedish black metal, where they were actually going around burning churches and shit. That they're satanic. But that's like a little tiny piece. It's just leave them in their corner. But even Pokemon. I remember in the 90s when Pokemon came out, the card game,
Pokemon got some flack.
Yeah, a lot. There was televangelists who were trying really hard to push to how satanic Pokemon was, and it was trying to rally up children for Satan's army. I'm not kidding. Go on YouTube, you'll find it.
I believe you. No, I believe you.
Got to catch them all to release the power that's inside. He broke apart the English lyrics of the theme song for the anime, saying how satanic the lyrics are. Search far and wide to release the power that's inside, or whatever he was like. He was told this is Satan's message. I'm like, it's a broken record at this point, man.
Hey, I didn't know they went that far as to breaking down the song.
Yeah.
I knew the TCG card game had gotten.
Yeah, they broke down the imagery on the energy cards were satanic imagery apparently. You know, the lyrics to the game the lyrics to the song were about empowering children to go search for monsters with power. You know what I mean? And it's ridiculous, man. I mean, shit. What was I gonna say? There's something else that was accused of like satanic.
Digimon?
Not so. I don't know if Digimon. I don't know if Digimon was ever accused of that necessarily. I think the idea,
which is odd because that's the more monster oriented one.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be computer fake data, so it's not as
Yeah, true.
What I was about to say must have been a lie because I can't pull it anymore. It should have come to me. I know it's going to come to me, but whatever. Let's keep going.
I was working on this bass part.
Oh, what I was going to say. There were religious communities that were burning Harry Potter books in the early 2000s. Yeah, because they were advertising witchcraft and black magic and stuff. So they were satanic. I remember that. Yeah. So
I did not know about that one.
Yeah. I remember when the first movie came out, it was on the news afterwards, the movie, they're boycotting it. They're burning all their Harry Potter books and stuff. I was like, well, all right. You had to buy the books to burn them.
That's exactly
you had
what
to buy the
said.
books to burn them, right?
Yeah.
If you stole the books, then you're the one that's breaking the law, but you didn't. I know you bought all these books just to burn them. So J.K. Rowling's got a fatter paycheck because you're burning all her books. I mean, they're just going to print more. Anyway, that's what I was gonna come up with. Let's hear this bass part.
3 notes, repeats. Pretty basic stuff, kind of bored with it. I was looking for something that needed to make this thing interesting.
Is Satan rampant in rock? To some, the answer is obvious. Skull-headed monsters and demon-like figures are probably the most blatant. And there is the number 666, also known as the mark of the beast, the symbol belonging to the Antichrist, who, the Bible tells us, is Satan.
I'm a moth, and that's a really big fucking flame. I was playing around with one of my favorite synths called Harmer. It's made by ImageLine. And one of my favorite little things with Harmer is that you can take an image, any image, load it into the synthesizer, and it starts to generate characteristics of that image across the frequency spectrum.
Oh, I've heard of this, yeah.
So essentially what you're able to do is insert an image into a WAV file, but you need a spectrograph to be able to see it, right? So I found this picture of the number 6.
I knew it.
And
I knew
put it
it
over the bass part.
Ah. That is awesome.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a big problem with that there, is that we've got this big giant gap in the middle. So I grabbed Harmer again, and I made another interesting bass using this really interesting image I found on the internet of a star.
I knew it!
It's kind of upside down.
How did I know this? This is brilliant.
Now, at this point, I'm giggling like a child. So much so that Jess, my wife, actually heard the giggling. She came in and she said, "What on earth are you doing?" And she snapped at me at this moment where I had this really childish kind of look on my face. Now, of course, it's a bit of fun, right? You got to have fun on these projects. But don't worry, I did the thing that any responsible composer would do. I saved it. I put it into Wise. I put it into the game, and I sent it off.
Yes.
And I didn't tell anybody about it.
That's hilarious.
What's the worst that can happen, right? I mean, for anybody to see that, they'd have to crack open the game, pull out the Wise files, and run every single file through a spectrograph and find that single bass part. It's never going to happen, right?
Oh no. Did it happen?
Oh yes.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. You've gotta be kidding me. How?
So it doesn't get any clearer than that with all the pentagrams and the 666 right there. They're letting you know, here's our allegiance to Satan, and your children are listening to this.
Oh, you got how? How? Who has that kind of time on their hands?
Apparently a bunch of people.
Are you kidding me?
Well, all it takes is for one person to find it and say they found this, and then everybody else is going to do it to try and prove them wrong or right.
That's the kind of person that's like, I'm just going to run this through a spectrograph just so I can kind of like find an image that I can distort and kind of like spin into whatever I think it might be. And then he hit the fucking gold mine. Like, that's what happened.
Much.
Oh, dude.
He was like, cha-ching.
But wait, there's more.
No.
I was working on this drone sound. It's pretty horrible.
I don't like it.
Sound. Now, if anybody's curious, the way I made this drone sound was by bowed guitar. Everything you're hearing there is bowed guitar. I'm bowing a guitar between C sharp and D, and I've spread that out across 4 octaves. And all I'm doing is just slowly bowing between those 2 notes. And I recorded that a whole bunch of different times and layered it on top of each other. And when you do that, that's the kind of sound you get. It's really, really quite a cool thing. Again, it's kind of using guitars in an interesting way to get that horror thing across. Now, I had this idea one day that I wonder if I can hide a message in there somehow.
Oh, no.
What happens if I put something in the center and then took a little bit of information from one side of the channel and put that into the other side of the channel and then flip the phase? And what happens is if somebody listens back to that in mono, they get this. So literally there, that's exactly the same sound I just played before, but played back in mono. And what's that all about?
Wow.
Government investigation has found subliminal messages on certain albums when played in reverse.
Ah. So what happens if we play that in reverse?
Oh, I need to hear this. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Can you imagine feeling like so triumphant that you caught them in their Satanism, and then you reversed it and it says Jesus loves you? You're like, well, I can't show this to anybody. This guy's a troll, and I love it. Oh, I love it.
Now, do you know how many news websites wrote about that one?
None.
Freaking none.
Told you.
So, what did we learn on Zoom? Well, if you want to get a different outcome, you must change the process. Change the process, change the outcome. If you're struggling to come up with something new, if you find yourself stuck in a rut, if you're suffering from creative blocks, change the process. Change the way you're doing things, and you'll end up with a different result. Not only that, but have the courage to do so. I say courage, not confidence. Confidence comes from doing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Right.
It takes courage to change that. The second thing we learned, change the brief if it makes the project better. Even though the brief said no guitars and we went down that route to begin with, we felt comfortable changing that later on to satisfy a more important element of that brief. Sometimes you cannot do everything. That being said, though, I feel we reached a more interesting place by ignoring the guitar element that was so synonymous with the Doom universe to begin with. I feel if we started with guitars in mind, we would have ended up with something that sounded like those memes I was playing
Very
before.
much so.
And finally, and the most important, a team that encourages an environment where you feel comfortable in failure will enable you to thrive.
I love that so much.
As a composer on the project, your fear of rejection will often get in the way of you experimenting and pushing the boundaries a little bit more. And that's understandable. Sometimes you're working with somebody who is not encouraging that. I always say whenever you're on a project, you're playing one part as the provider of the music and one part as the educator of music. Try and educate your other team members above, below, and on the same level that an environment in which you're encouraged to fail and feel fine failing is something that will allow you to thrive.
Dude,
thank you, everybody.
That was insane.
Yeah. He actually does take some questions at the end that he answers that people ask.
Okay.
So he talks a bit more. So.
Okay. Oh god, but that music that just played was freaking insane. It was insane. I need to play this.
Yeah,
I need to play this game just for the music.
That is BFG Division.
Oh, Jesus. Now, I'm following this guy. I'm definitely following this guy.
So ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 10 to 15 minutes for a bunch of questions. I really encourage anybody who wants to ask a question, just jump straight up to that microphone there and let's get into it. Yo.
Hello.
Hey, man.
This is brilliant, by the way. Thank you. One of my favorite things about your music, both in Doom and in Killer Instinct, is how it's integrated to kind of respond to player actions and player input. Like in Doom, the glory kills cause some of your music to muffle and distort. And then in Killer Instinct, you've got those ultra combos that completely changes the music in real time. And I'm curious, do you have a hand in some of that integration? And can you talk a little bit about the differences between this project and Killer Instinct?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Really, really good question. The reason I chose not to kind of go too much into the implementation side of things on Doom is that there's a lot of questions and things here that usually happens at GDC about this, which allows me to answer those sort of things. But not only that, there's a lot of talks that kind of go into the implementation side of it as well. And I found that there were some really important lessons that I learned on the Doom score, such as the team that really encourages an environment where you feel comfortable in failing, that were kind of really important that you don't really see discussed in a GDC.
Right.
So thanks so much for answering this question. Essentially, the biggest difference between Killer Instinct and Doom is obviously the style of the game. Killer Instinct has a very predictable structure where you're going to have a first round, a second round, there's the kills at the end, there's combos that can happen. There's this kind of framework that you're working within. Doom, essentially, pretty much every battle in Doom is a linear path, right? You enter the arena, the demons come out, your role is to kill all the demons, and then you kind of move forward. It's this very kind of linear progression. Now, we chose not to do too much crazy dynamic music stuff within that structure because it just seemed to get into the way of the groove. Basically, when that player started and those demons came in, we just wanted it to be on, just going, just bang, 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 bang. Just like you've jumped in the car and you've hit play on that album, right? You're just going, you're off. So that was the biggest thing. There was a couple of little things that we did. Obviously, when you do the glory kills, the music drops out and there's a little riser that happens. We didn't really know how long each glory kill was going to take, so I made a series of what I call endless risers. These are essentially looping risers. Now, I know that's a break in terminology, but let me explain it. Basically, we're taking a shepherd's tone. You ever know what a shepherd tone is? Yeah? Okay, basically it's just taking a series of notes that go from low to high, right? When those notes are coming in high, you're kind of fading in the lower notes again. It's a little bit more complicated than that. I really encourage you to jump on Google and check it out. It's a really interesting thing. But if you use this philosophy, you can create these looping rises. It just feels constantly like there's this tension rising. It's really, really handy in game environments when you're stuck in a situation where you don't know how long something is going to go for. So we did that. And then other times we started to experiment with this idea of like the music had started and like there was the hi-hat and the basic riff kicking along, and then bam, when everything kicked in, that's when the music would start, and that's when it really kicked in. Honestly, that's as complicated as the dynamic music system in Doom was. How I delivered that stuff to the team, I would always break my songs out and put that stuff into Wise, and then I'd send the Wise files off to the team. The stuff I'd break out was mainly just for variation. So we didn't have like a single 3-minute loop. I would break that down into a series of different bars, so it would be constantly rearranging. But it's not rearranging on any data or anything like that. It's just going from there. That's very different to another project that I'm on at the moment where we're exploring all sorts of really interesting stuff that you can do with dynamic music. So yeah, there's all sorts of different ways you can take it. Thanks for the question.
That's really exciting. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Hi,
hey, man.
Thank you for a super nerdy talk. Actually, I have 3 very quick,
no worries.
very nerdy questions. So first of all, the setup that you made,
yes.
You use sine waves, right?
Yes.
Did you experiment with saw waves, square waves, just to get more harmonics?
Yeah, interesting. So the first thing there, basically everything started as a sine wave. What I wanted to do, as I said before, is to kind of capture whatever the pedal was going to add to it. Now, if one of those pedals has a preamp stage that's ramping that sine wave up into clipping range, and then it runs through a clipper that's clipping off that sine wave, you're instantly creating a square wave there.
Ooh.
So some of those things would happen naturally and organically within that system. I didn't experiment with any other waves being sent through it. Everything was sine waves. What I did do a couple of times, though, was send 2 sine waves through the system that were slightly pitched differently. So to create this phase imbalance, and that would do all sorts of crazy stuff to the pedals.
Okay, second, another question. That setup created actually these really punchy high attack sounds, right? Did you put an envelope on it, or was it just the compressor working?
So a lot of the time it was a combination of things. One was the splitter sending to the sidechain compressors. I would send the signal out and I'd set the attack so it would be, say, 0.3 or 30, whatever it is, 30. So yeah, 30 milliseconds. And that usually creates a really, really nice and sharp attack. And then everything was running through a slow compressor at the end that was really pinning things back right that. Once that came into the computer, I might do some more processing within the computer itself, such as transient processing and things like that, just to kind of get those transients really to punch through. Transients, I believe, are really the key to getting a really punchy sounding game mix. When you've got all these sound effects and screams and gunshots and all this sort of stuff going through, if you've got just a solidly limited thing sitting in the background, it doesn't come through. What you want is those dynamics going, hey, I'm a punch, then I'm gone. Hey, I'm a punch, then I'm gone. And that tricks the player's ear into believing that there's more solid music happening in the background.
Okay, final simple question. Did you only use a DAW or actually maybe use some hardware sequencers or arpeggiators and these kind of things?
No, I didn't. I had a Eurorack system that I used to generate a whole bunch of different stuff that I used. I didn't really talk about it in this talk because that's kind of, general sort of stuff. Set up a synth, set up a sequencer, play some stuff. I mean, people have kind of done that stuff a lot. So I did use a little bit of that, but once we created that sort of array, that Doom array system, I found that was enough to get really interesting pure textures that were coming out that really suited the game itself.
Okay, so that thing, that like pedal board essentially that he created was just in the DAW. That wasn't analog like daisy chained equipment. Those were all like plug-in compressors and distortion boxes in a DAW.
No, so the those were actual compressors and everything that he hooked up, that they were hooked into the DAW.
Okay,
so as the signal would come through and it would get to the DAW, he could
that's what I
mess
thought.
with it there.
That's what I thought he was saying.
Needed.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But right now the way he's answering this question kind of confused me. I feel like because he's saying, did you use anything besides just the DAW? But I guess what he means it in post processing after the initial setup of all these pedals, is what he's asking then, I guess, right? Because these were all actual physical hardware that he was using, and then into the computer.
Yeah, it was all physical hardware. I think he's asking, in addition to the pedals, did he use anything?
Yeah,
else?
I'm starting to get that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for the talk.
Cool, no worries.
I hope you don't mind if I rip off an experiment with your setup.
Yeah, no, please. That's the idea of sharing it, right? That's the whole idea of GDC. Please.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Me too.
Great talk. I'm glad we didn't all kill each other when the music went on. First question,
time.
I'd love to hear your take on your take on sequencing when you release the songs just to be listened to on your stereo. The soundtrack came out. I play it a lot. I almost kill people listening to it. And just what recommendation you have based on your experience with this soundtrack along with others about sequencing, lots of different content from your Rise full-on songs to your sort of dip stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that question as well. Thank you so much. So I believe that a soundtrack is usually a wasted opportunity with a video game. I really get so disappointed when I'm a big fan of the game, and then the soundtrack itself comes out, and the soundtrack is just like a whole bunch of loops that they've pulled out of wires and then thrown on an iTunes playlist or whatever. For me, the soundtrack is the absolute best opportunity to put forth the best representation of that music. So it's something that needs to be treated almost like a separate project. We had a lot of fun on the soundtrack. We had these monologues that I pulled from the game, basically voiceover files that were pulled from the game. And I used those to separate these different segments of the soundtrack, which was basically inspired by sort of 70s and 80s concept albums, like sort of metal albums. I was hugely inspired by the War of the Worlds concept album. And then, just made some pretty cool arrangements and stuff like that people would enjoy it too. It's important to understand the context. A soundtrack needs to be enjoyed on its own. You need to be able to put that soundtrack in the car and use it as a memento from your time playing with the game. It's a lot more than just a collection of loops that you pulled out of the game just to make some sort of marketing opportunity. Cool.
Love that.
And a quick follow-up, do you have hints about the remaining Easter eggs? I think you said there are 5?
Yeah, so there's 5 Easter eggs. I think 4 have been found. There's one that hasn't been found yet. I don't know. Keep looking.
Keep looking.
Thanks, man. Yo.
Hi, Mick. Arnie.
Hey, Arnie.
I wanted to know, since you finished this project, if you've had to spend some time, like, in the church to purify your soul.
Oh, look, I mean, I didn't put that stuff in there to offend anybody. I mean, it probably did, right? I mean, of course, if anybody's going to do that. Obviously, people got pretty upset about that sort of stuff. It's silly for me to say that's not the intention. I mean, I can say it's not the intention, but once it leaves me in my own mind, I have no control over it. It's out there, okay? Now, I understood that when we were playing in that realm, it's going to happen. I felt we were able to do it in Doom because Doom itself is full of demons, full of pentagrams, full of religious stuff. The story behind Doom is that this evil corporation has the people that work for the corporation under such a tight roll with a thumb that they're able to get away with all sorts of things. The corporation itself, once you get higher up in the corporation levels, you can opt in to become a human sacrifice and things like this. So, I mean, there's all sorts of that stuff that's in the game already.
Thanks, man. Amazing score.
Yeah, cheers. Good question. Yo.
Hi there. So I'm a graphics programmer, so please correct me if I'm full of shit. But I noticed a bunch of Doom themes coming out in the music, and I was kind of surprised you didn't mention that in your talk. So what was your process there in like integrating those themes and choosing what themes to put in?
Yeah,
and how did you put them in?
Yeah, no, good question.
Thanks.
Again, I always feel it's a wasted opportunity when you're working on a pre-existing franchise that you don't pay some tribute to what's happened in the past. I feel that's really, really super important. I didn't talk about it so much in this talk. I've talked about that in a couple of other talks, and I wanted to focus more on those sort of geeky details that I can't talk about at, say, some other conference, right? But yeah, to me, it's really super important to do that. Those themes, whether we like it or not, work their way into the consciousness of the fan base. The fans are expecting to hear that. It to them is as much of an icon within that game universe as the name Doom itself. That's very, very important. How I chose which ones to use, basically I'd just be working on a track and see whichever sort of theme I could fit in there. Sometimes I work them in a really obvious way. The theme for the baddie in the game, hers is based on one of the Bobby Prince's original themes very, very clearly. But some other times there'd just be like a riff that would come in for 2 or 3 seconds and then it would go back out. And it's just so the player playing can go, oh yeah, cool, it's a Doom game. And then they go back into killing demons and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it. Good question though.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks for the talk.
Yeah, no worries. I probably got time for one more, so this is really cool. Yeah.
There's only one more.
Yeah, no worries.
Could you briefly touch on how the music works with the sound design in general? Because I feel like sound design is a major like storytelling tool.
Yeah, cool. No, of course. So I don't feel 100% confident talking about this because I wasn't in control and charge of this sort of thing. That responsibility obviously falls onto the sound team and the audio director. But I can talk about kind of the stuff that we made sure that we did together. For a tight mix, for me, one of the most important things is tonal elements, right? So if there's a tonal element that's happening in the game, it's very important that that is in a similar key or same root note or whatever it might be of the music that's playing. So you'll notice in a couple of levels there you pick up a chain gun, right? And this chain gun is able to be split out into 3 chain guns. So you've got like this ultimate killer chain gun thing going on, right?
Yeah, the turret.
And the sound of this chain gun, the bullets firing out of it happening so quickly that it produces a tone. That was the philosophy behind that. Now we made sure that the tone of that was a D note. It was a low D note. And that D note was sitting with the same music that was sitting in the background, which is also sitting on a D. So when you do that, you get this really...
Sitting on a D. That's I mean, it's there. It's there. It's low-hanging fruit for anyone that wants to grab it. It's there.
Solid mix that's happening. You don't have frequencies that are clashing. My best thing that I can say about that really is that it's something that really needs to be considered on every project. It's not an afterthought, and it's not something that you can fix in Wise or whatever you're using later on. If you're ducking stuff when something else happens, or if you're trying to compress this when this is happening, you're fixing a problem that shouldn't be there in the first place. Now those tools exist to allow us to fix that, but ultimately if you can carve your sounds and your music with that stuff in mind to begin with, you're going to end up with a much tighter mix in the end.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a really good GDC.
That was awesome.
That's it.
That was awesome. Okay, I freaking really enjoyed that. And like I said, I am extremely motivated right now to go play with sounds, with digital sounds right now. Like last night, I don't know if you saw this. I don't know what did I'm not sure if I posted on Discord. Now I will after this if I didn't. I couldn't sleep last night, so I made a beat.
Oh, nice.
Just out of nowhere, like random weird like xylophone bell stuff that I don't really normally use, and I just really liked how it came out. So I'll put it in Discord and show you. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go play with some sounds now. This is awesome. But honestly though, I want to play this game now just for the music. I really want to play this game. Has there been a Doom game since this one?
Yes. This is Doom 2016. That's what most of us refer to it, since it's just called Doom. And if you just type that in, you'll get the 1993 one. It's Doom 2016. The sequel to this game is Doom Eternal.
I've heard of that.
It's the same guy that composed the music, Mick Gordon. Yeah. At least for the main game. The game had 2 DLCs, and unfortunately Bethesda and Mick kind of had a falling out. So the music is killer. Whether he comes back for the 3rd game is up in the air.
Okay.
But there is a game after this. It's Doom Eternal.
Okay, cool. I think I might look into this. All right. Well, guys, thank you, Draconic, for recommending this to me. Thank you for reacting to it with me. I really appreciate it. I had a great time. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this reaction, like, comment, subscribe if you feel so inclined. Follow me on all my social medias. Join my Discord. Follow me on Twitch. Go down below, find the link, and follow Draconic Afterlife if you haven't. Until next time, guys, I've been Count Richard Quake, and I've been here with
Draconic Afterlife.
And we both hope you have a seismic day. See ya.